what's this? Week 4, trial exam, revision workshop 4. Today we're going to do a quick whistle-stop tour of Vietnam. Obviously this is just a very small fraction of the Vietnam course, but we stop here. We stop here because that's kind of the agreed point where all the classes should be up to ahead of the trial exam. Then we're going to do just how to do the 8 and the 12 mark questions. Okay. Obviously, that's really important. 267. So the 8 and the 12 mark questions, that's really important. Obviously, because you've got them in section B and section C. So that's Depression, the New Deal, and the Vietnam War. So we're going to look at both of those as well. Okay, that's the plan. I'll go with purple just to make you happy. Thanks. Dien Bien Phu is where we're going to start. Okay, Dien Bien Phu. So, anyone know what it is to start with? Dien Bien Phu. Anyone know what it is? Jack Ramsey. It's a battle. Okay, good start. Alright, it's a battle. Between the French and Vietnamese. Okay.
Location then, where is it? In Vietnam as well? North Vietnam, yeah. It's close to what border as well? Another country? Laos, yeah. So it's on the border between North Vietnam and Laos, the French and the Vietnamese. Right, what do France do in this battle? What's the first thing that they kind of do?
Like an airstrip?
Yeah, so they make an airstrip and they make an army base, don't they? I was going to say naval. Make an army base.
Hedgehog.
Yeah. Does it look like a hedgehog though?
No.
Because my class, we didn't feel it did look like a hedgehog.
It doesn't look like a hedgehog, but that's just what they call it.
We went through a lot of animals, didn't we, to get to hedgehog?
I'd love to know what you thought.
Otter. Badger, did we come up with? Mole, because I said it was like a small animal.
They generally came.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Great.
Right, so they built this naval base, no, why do I keep saying naval? Army base at this location. What was the point of it? What were they going to try and do? Where was it as well? I know we've said kind of location-wise, but where is it?
On a valley.
It's in the valley, yeah?
Yeah.
And who's it a stronghold for?
The French?
No.
Who's a stronghold for?
North Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The North Vietnamese, the stronghold. Okay. The North Vietnamese. Now, who said it was in a valley? Someone said it was in a valley. Right. Absolutely spot on. The French get there, and what should they do when they get there? What part should they take?
The hill?
Higher ground.
Yeah. All right. The higher ground, the hill. Sorry, Izzy Tom. You know, he's excited. He's here. It's great. So, the high point. That's what they should go for. Why don't they go to the high ground?
Because they can't get the artillery.
Yeah, they think they can't get their artillery up to the high ground. Now the Vietnamese are watching this. Okay, so the French set up in the lower area, the lower territory. What do the Vietnamese then go and do? How do they get the higher ground though? Alright, they take apart all of their machinery, all of their weapons, and carry it up the mountains. Okay, take the higher ground, and essentially you then have this position where you've got the Vietnamese all on the higher ground, the French at the bottom. How many Vietnamese troops?
Not as many as the French.
Big number. 50,000. How many French troops? 16,000. Okay? Think St James's Park. Right? You all were there a few weeks ago. Think all of the seats are filled by the Vietnamese. All up high, okay? And on the pitch, you've got the 16,000 French soldiers. Alright? Completely surrounded. it is mission impossible for the French. Alright? Mission impossible for the French. So I'll just put how many people.
So slowly but surely, what do the Vietnamese start to do then to that French base? What do they start to do? Anything? Nothing? Yeah, good. They attack the bases. They do them one by one, don't they? They pick them off. Because I know it's not really a hedgehog shape, but they've got lots of different little bases, haven't they? So they pick them off one by one and start to attack them, don't they? And obviously, they've got the advantage, because as I said before, where are the Viet Minh? Above, yeah, on the higher ground. It's much easier to attack downwards, isn't it, than attack upwards. So slowly but surely they pick them up. What do the French not do, though? What will the French not do?
Surrender.
They won't surrender, they won't give in, do they? So the French won't surrender. So they do put up quite a good battle, but as Mr. Lee said, it's really hard with those types of numbers, isn't it? What happens to the French in the end, though? They lose, don't they? They lose, don't they? What kind of numbers do escape?
70.
Yeah, 70. So out of 16,000, 70 men managed to escape. That's tiny, isn't it? On average, we get 70 people come to these revision sessions.
Yeah.
On a morning. So it's like basically like these 3 classrooms getting freed. And as Mr. Lee's put on there, around how many get captured? Yeah, so 11,000 are either captured or missing in action. We're not quite sure what's happened to some of them. Where are they going to go? They're captured to where?
War camps.
Yeah, prisoner of war camps. Do you think prisoner of war camps in North Vietnam are very nice? No.
Not very good. Right, okay, so the French lose, only 70 escape. You've got over 11,000 captured and around 4,000 obviously die in the battle. What's then the consequence of the battle? What happens next to Vietnam?
French leave.
The French leave. Okay, so the first thing is the French leave. Then what happens?
Split.
Gets split. Anyone know where the conference is? Where it's decided it's going to be split? A neutral place begins with a G, keeps cropping up all throughout history. Geneva. Okay, so the Geneva Conference and the document where it's agreed that Vietnam is going to be split is called the Geneva Accords. Okay, at the Geneva Accords, the North and South are going to be separate, and this is only supposed to be a short-term thing until it all gets sorted out politically, diplomatic affairs are sorted. Alright, so the first consequence is the French leave. The second consequence is Vietnam is split at the Geneva Conference under the Geneva Accords. The North is what type of area? Type of ideology do they believe in?
Communist.
Communist. Okay, so the North is communist. The South? Yes, non-communist, not a communist territory. So they're clashing. Who runs the North? Got a long track named after him. Ho Chi Minh. Okay, Ho Chi Minh in charge of the North. And what does he want to happen between the two places? He wants to join them together, and he wants the whole of Vietnam to be. So what's the South saying? No. Now at this time, the South goes through an election. Anyone know who gets voted in? President Diem. So a man named President Diem gets voted in. Who's he heavily backed by on the very quiet, sly, America, CIA, okay, are secretly supporting Diem. He's essentially a puppet for America, okay, he's essentially a puppet. He is put there as the figurehead to say what to the North when they try to get talks to unite both countries. What's he there just to say? No. Okay? So the consequence on Vietnam is now it's firmly split and they're not going to be unified. What do the North then do? Who do they send into the South?
Guerrilla.
They send members of the Viet Minh into the south, about 4,000 of them, okay? And they start a reign of terror in the south. Why? What are they trying to do?
Scare us out.
Scare the south and get them to turn communist. Okay? So that's the consequence for Vietnam. You've now got this very small scale terror going on in the south to try and turn them communist. But they're saying no because who does DM know he's got the support of? CIA in America. Alright? So that's a big problem, a big consequence following the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. Does that make sense? There's lots of little bits to that. The other consequences for America, obviously what's the big consequence for America? What do they now have to do, or they think they have to do?
Protect the South.
Say again?
Protect the South.
Yeah, protect the South. But do they offer military support at first? Because they can't. Does anyone know who or what they send at first?
Advisors.
Advisors. You know how many?
16.
Yeah, between 16 and 18,000. Alright? And they send these advisors in to help who?
The government.
The government. Because they don't think the government's strong enough. So that's the consequence for America. And the only other consequence is you could say, who's getting stronger as a result of this? Who's getting stronger as a result of the French defeat? North Vietnam. Who in particular then? If it's the North, which type of people are they? Communists. So the communists getting very strong. Okay? And that's the consequences of the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. I don't think it would come up in the exam this year.
I don't know, because it could be
know.
lazy.
Because it was on last year.
But you're the second last year to ever sit this paper and then it's been scrapped, so
So,
it could just be lazy and do a similar question.
yeah. So, just know that, you know, even though it was on last year, you'll still want to just have a little understanding of what Dien Bien Phu was and the consequences of it.
No.
Right, involvement?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, so there's quite a few reasons in why America do get involved in this war. It seems quite bizarre that America would get involved in this war because it's really quite far away from them geographically. I'm sure if you asked lots of Americans at the time where Vietnam was, they wouldn't have really known. So why do they get involved? We've kind of looked at sort of my class, sort of 3 or 4 kind of key reasons as to why America get involved in the war. Any ideas?
Because China became communist and they didn't want to dominate.
Right, excellent. This idea of a domino theory, really good use of historical language terminology, this idea of now China's become communist in 1949. What are they worried is going to happen to other countries in Asia? They're going to start and become communist. So North Vietnam's already become communist. You know, it's maybe only a matter of time before South Vietnam goes. South Vietnam goes, where else could go? Where's next door to Vietnam? What countries? Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, India, Burma. So it could become a big communist bloc, couldn't it? Does America want that? No, because what's America's view of communism? Yeah, they absolutely hate it, don't they? They absolutely hate it. So they're worried about this idea of a domino theory, aren't they? Any other reasons why America get involved? So domino theory is definitely one, this idea of... Excellent, yeah, this idea of supporting the Truman Doctrine. What's the other word for it as well? What does Truman say wants to do with communism? Excellent, containment. So it's this idea of containment, and them two go really, really nicely together. So Truman, remember when he becomes president back in 1945 after Roosevelt dies, so it's the Cold War. We're still in the Cold War in the 1960s when this war begins. Says about containing communism. Can he do anything about countries that have already fallen to communism? No, but can he stop other countries falling? Yeah, and that's what he wants to do with South Vietnam. Yes?
I attacked the ship for
Right, so the Gulf of Tonkin incident as well. So, the Gulf of Tonkin incident also. So they're kind of theories, aren't they, about why America doesn't want to get involved. So the idea of containing communism, the idea of the domino theory, but then attacks on America. And the first one is the Gulf of Tonkin. So what's meant to have happened at the Gulf of Tonkin? What does Johnson say happens there?
Battleships were attacked.
Yeah, so the USS Maddox apparently was meant to have been attacked. Was it attacked? It had been attacked once, hadn't it? It had been attacked once, but it, you know, it was really minor damage, no one's injured. But then they said there was another attack, and as you said, that wasn't true. They apparently mistook waves for bullets. When you say it like that, are waves and bullets the same? No, but that's what they say. So they say they've been attacked. So if now they've been attacked twice, what can America now kind of say?
It's fair enough to go to war.
Yeah, it's fair enough to go to war. It's kind of legitimate, isn't it? Because one time you could say was maybe a mistake, twice they know what they're doing. Does Johnson know that this attack hasn't happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he bothered about that though? No. Do the American people know that this attack hasn't happened? No, so actually when they find out about it, how do they feel about sort of getting more involved with Vietnam when they hear about this attack on their boat?
Cheated.
Yeah. So they want to go to war there, and then when they find out afterwards, they feel a little bit cheated about it. What's one final thing thinking about? If you think about South Vietnam, and Mr. Lee's kind of touched upon this already in comparison to North Vietnam. What's South Vietnam like as a country, and particularly thinking about their army? It's weak, isn't it? So the ARVN itself is really, really quite weak, as is the government. Because if the government was strong, what would America not having to be doing with DN? Supporting them, yeah. So the ARVN themselves, which is the South Vietnamese army, is quite weak, as is DM. And people aren't very supportive of the regime. The regime needs some help.
It's one other attack. Does anyone else know the other attack? That's a year after the Gulf of Tonkin incident. That is another reason they can now get involved.
Didn't it kill advisors?
Yes, as part of what's the event where people are killed. Not yet, not yet. It's not at sea.
In the airfield.
The airfields, yeah. So there's an attack on the American airfields in Vietnam. Okay. And that's where advisors, all right, who are at the airfield at the time, which is an airfield in South Vietnam, which is used by the Americans, and there are advisors killed there as well. So 2 apparent attacks gives Johnson the ability to then say what to the American people? What can he then turn around and say? Especially if Americans have been killed. What can you say to the American people? What can you say to Congress? We need to go in. Okay? We're being attacked. We need to now fight back. Okay? Loads of stuff there. Any other? Happy with those? There's plenty there. You could write a really good answer with all of that. A really good answer with all of that.
Right, let's quickly go into guerrilla warfare, because if you want to have a look at some exam technique as well. What is guerrilla warfare? What is it, sorry? Yeah, so it's a type of tactic. What type of tactic are you using then in guerrilla warfare? Because is it actually guerrillas fighting? No, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, so this kind of idea of not going into big pitched battles, is it? This kind of idea of actually trying to use different kind of sly, sort of sneaky methods, because the main thing is to avoid a big pitched battle. Are the VC going to be good in a big pitched battle against America? No, because who's got the superior manpower? America, yeah. So it's about using different types of methods. What is the whole point about guerrilla warfare? What do they want to do to their opponent?
Demoralised.
It's about demoralising, it's about wearing them down. It's like a war of attrition. It's about wearing them down until the Americans can't go on anymore. It's about lowering their morale, their self-esteem, making them feel really, really frustrated. And then once they're at their lowest point, what would the VC then do once the Americans are really kind of sick, tired, frustrated? What would they then do?
Good.
In what way? They'd then go out and have a big pitched battle and kind of try and overrun them once they're at their lowest point. So it's about lowering the morale of them. So what is some types of tactics then? We've mentioned a few of them already. What are the different types of tactics that they use? So I think some people already mentioned some of them. Hit and run, yeah. So what is a hit and run? I know it sounds really obvious, but what is it? What do they actually do? Yeah, so basically you shoot someone and then you need to dart away, don't you? That kind of idea of you've got to go up, attack and then leave. Are you going to necessarily kill that many people in that type of tactic? No, but again it's about the idea of frustrating the enemy, making them feel scared when they're on their patrols. Any other types of tactics that they use? Booby traps, yeah. What's the good thing about booby traps for the VC? They're cheap, they're effective. Again, it's about scaring them. So, because what type of booby traps can you have? So you can have a tiger trap, yeah. Any other types of traps? You can have grenades, bouncing betties, Venus flytrap, door trap, bungee sticks. So there's lots of different ones. Again, do they cost the VC very much to make? Are they easy to make? Yeah. But do they cause the opponent to be scared? Because the whole point is you're going through the jungle. Do you want to get your leg caught on a bungee stick or your leg caught in a tiger trap, something like that? No. So these are all things that might not actually kill the opponent, but they injure them, make them feel vulnerable, make them feel scared as they're going through the jungle.
As part of guerrilla warfare, you have the tactics, you just said hit and run and ambush. You have things like booby traps. You could also throw in there, you've got things like snipers. Fish in the sea. Okay, so that's where the VC will go into the American territories, into their camps, and actually work there as pot washers, okay, or something like that. And their primary reason they are there is to find out the tactics, find out the routes, find out the patrol units, really get a feel and spy on what is going on, and then feed it back to the VC that are going to commit the hit and run and the ambushing. They also, as part of Fish in the Sea, they're also just in the South Vietnamese villages, which makes it really difficult, because when the Americans are trying to win the hearts and minds of, just say these are some South Vietnamese villages here, we're trying to win the hearts and minds, okay? Now you three are normal South Vietnamese villagers. James is a VC, okay? But I don't know that because he just looks like everybody else, all right? He's getting on with daily life. I wouldn't know he's actually the enemy. And that's the whole point of Fish in the Sea, okay? He just blends in. Very clever tactic. Spying, very clever, okay? Joe, you were going to say something?
One slow, one quick.
Yeah, 1 slow, 4 quick, and that links to, hit and run. What's the slow part? The planning. Their planning is meticulous, okay? Slowly plan and then boom, okay? You go in, it's a quick attack, all right? A quick hit, and then it's a quick clear up of whatever damage you've done, and then a quick retreat, okay? 1 slow, 4 quick. Excellent. But in order for guerrilla warfare to be successful, there are 2 crucial things that are needed and that they use in order for this to be brilliant. What are the 2 things? One of them is something about supplies, the other helps them hide.
Yeah.
What's the thing for supplies?
Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Ho Chi Minh Trail. Okay?
How long is the Ho Chi Minh Trail?
600 miles.
Yeah, 600 miles and 50 miles wide, yeah. What do they have at all times?
People working on it.
Excellent. excellent. People working on it. So the Ho Chi Minh Trail is never ever shut. So people work on it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep it open, because if this shuts, what can the VC not get? Supplies, weapons, food, ammunition, things like that. What does the Ho Chi Minh Trail do as well? Where does it go through, which is perhaps a little bit underhand? It goes through South Vietnam, it goes through Laos, it goes through Cambodia, isn't it? So it goes through other countries as well in order to fit it in. So even if America does bomb a part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which it often does, what do they just do with the Ho Chi Minh Trail? Widen it, move it somewhere else, yeah. So they're constantly repairing it, looking after it, because that is vitally important. And that's one of the problems that America really had. They could never stop this trail. What else do they have as well, which is quite ingenious, under the ground? They have a tunnel network, don't they? Have a tunnel network. So it can be the idea of, now you see them, now you don't. Because the tunnel network means that they can disappear very, very quickly once they've done one of these hit and run attacks and things like that. What do they have under the ground? Sleeping quarters, hospitals, food supplies. They also have little dead ends, because the Americans obviously again are trying to find these underground tunnels. The Americans built one of their bases over one of the underground tunnel networks because they didn't realise it was there. So just showing you about how well hidden they were. So they might, again, like what Mr. Lee was saying before, have a entrance to one of their tunnels in the middle of a village's hut, under like a cooking pot or something like that. And again, the Americans don't know.
I think the Americans are so surprised by the tunnel networks, they actually tried to say that they were built after the Americans start the war in Vietnam and start fighting. Actually, they're already constructed and they're already sophisticated channel of tunnels before the Americans do anything. Don't be put off here. This is an incredible tactic, an incredible idea that is one of the main reasons why the VC are so effective. All right, and the fact is, when they commit hit and run, and the idea is that the Americans never see the opposition, the Americans never see their enemy, which are the VC, it's because they're in here. All right, and they're so well hidden, so difficult to find, that the Americans can never see that enemy, and the psychological effect is massive. Any questions?
Then, okay, I said this, but what do they not wear, which is really hard, which is why they can't fit, why they can't blend in. The normal clothes, they don't have a uniform on, which makes it really, really hard. So you just never know who you can trust and who you can't.
Some cases in the forest still wear camouflage.
Yeah.
Stick that in an answer if you want. Loads of things. That is, you know, half an hour whistle stop tour in that content. And it's I don't know about you, but feels like people have got quite a good grasp of this. A lot of people.
We've only got 2/3 of the content to go.
Anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it, isn't it? So that's all you're going to need to know for trial exam, because all classes should have got up to guerrilla tactics by Friday.
Yeah.
I hope that's the case for everyone.
No one cried there, which is good.
Right, let's have a look at the exam questions then. So, as Mr. Lee said at the start, Section B and Section C, the exam question techniques are the same, but I think you will start to see a little bit of an overlap of the exam technique questions even from Section A as well. So Section B, remember, is the Depression and New Deal, and then Section C is Vietnam, and the questions are the same. So the first one is an 8-mark question. How long should you spend on this? Do you think? How long should you spend on it? Yeah, about 10 minutes. So just to make round it up with even kind of numbers, about 10 minutes. Because it's worth, yes, it is worth 8, but the one that you really need to think about is that 12 marker. So thinking around about 10 minutes. And these are either a describe question or an explain question. So this is where they're asking you to use your own knowledge. So they're going to reward you on what you know. This is where they're asking you to show that you have revised, show that you know your stuff. This is about you showing off a little bit and showing them the content, which we can see today, you know your content very, very well. How many paragraphs should you have? 3. 3 developed paragraphs. This is really quite similar to the 6 marker for section A, isn't it? 3 developed paragraphs about different areas. So potentially if they asked you about guerrilla warfare, you'd have 3 paragraphs about 3 different types of guerrilla warfare. What I would do at the end of these 8 markers though, which is a little bit different to the 6 markers, at the end of the paragraph, so just the final sentence, I would link it back to the question. So you don't need a conclusion or anything like that, but I would just link it back as a whole. So if they've asked you about guerrilla warfare and how effective it was, add that sentence to explain why fish in the sea and why camouflage, and I think that was so effective and so useful, just to show the examiner that you understand that they've asked you a question and you're responding to it. And that will allow you to get those higher levels. And a final little thing that I know that I'm looking for when I mark for the exam paper, in every single paragraph that you have, you need to have at least 1, but maybe even 2, specific pieces of historical knowledge to show you really understand it. Because, to be honest, I think the Vietnam War, for an example, is something that I think a lot of people would be interested in. I think the Vietnam War is a topic that people are genuinely interested in. If you went to the library, if you looked on Amazon, there's loads of books on the Vietnam War, there's loads of films on the Vietnam War. It's something that people are interested in. I think we could ask sort of anyone about guerrilla warfare and they'll be able to tell us a little bit about that. And that's where you'll get, 4 or 5 marks. If you're looking to get a 7 or an 8, you need to know these sort of key bits of stats and facts and show the examiner that you've actually done that revision. Because that, I think, is the difference between a level 2, which is it's either a 4 or 5 or a 6 out of 8, or a level 3, which is a 7 or an 8. And it's having that extra little piece of knowledge that shows the examiner that you've done your research and you've done your reading and you know your stuff. I think that's the key difference for me about getting those higher levels, and there's no reason why, from what we've seen today, everyone in here wasn't capable of getting a 7 or an 8 out of 8, because you do know your stuff very, very well.
Do 12 then?
Yes, do 12 quick, right. So the 12 markers are really important, because not only do you get the mark out of 12, you also remember get what on top? SPAG. So actually it's out of 15, isn't it? So you get a mark out of 12, and then you'll get a mark out of 3 for your SPAG as well. So not that I'm saying your SPAG shouldn't be good all the way through, but do bear in mind on that 12 marker and that 10 marker, that's where you really want to think about that. Right, so they've asked you a really, really big question, haven't they? They've asked you about a big viewpoint, about something, and you need to obviously consider both sides. What's the first thing you need to do in a 12 marker? Sorry, how long should you spend first though? How long should you spend? Yeah, I would say about 20 minutes, to be honest. I'm just rounding up rather than saying about 15, 20 minutes. So if you do that, that gives you about 5 minutes leeway, maybe spend a little bit more time there. I suggest here as well, I'd spend 2 minutes doing a little plan and thinking about what you're going to talk about for each side, because you have to consider both sides of the argument. So maybe just 2 minutes bullet pointing down some ideas, just so you've got both views clear in your head. What's the first thing you need to do then? What do you need? It's not that type of one, no, it's not a useful type question. That's why it's good to go through these things now. Right, so Mr. Lee's put on the board, you need an introduction. The only thing you need to do in your introduction, which is why I'm saying maybe make a plan, is to make a judgment about whether you agree with the interpretation or you don't. Does it matter what your viewpoint is? No, as long as you can explain it as you go through your answer. So you need to make a judgment right at the start, and that's why I think it's good to make a plan, because at first you might not have a clear judgment, you might not have decided what you're going to want to say. Right, so you've made your judgment, then what do you need to do?
Explain.
Right, so you need to talk about the 2 viewpoints, don't you? So you're going to ideally have potentially 2 paragraphs, maybe 3. So if you're going to agree with the interpretation, whatever it asks you about, you might have 2 paragraphs for agree, 1 for disagree. Or if you're going to disagree, you might have 2 for disagree, 1 for agree. But this is where you're showing your knowledge and understanding. So you're going to have a developed paragraph, explain and say why, if we're thinking about the Depression for an example, why Roosevelt did win the 1932 elections. You talk about all the positives about Roosevelt there, wouldn't you, and why he won, for an example. Then the other side would be the reasons why Hoover lost, all the negative things that Hoover did is your other side. Again, within the paragraphs, the specific HKs, what they're looking for, that kind of idea, and also linking it back to the question and explaining why that paragraph is relevant to the question. Little sentences at the end can really help to go through that. You have to look at both sides, that is really, really important. Even if you wrote the best answer ever but you'd only considered one viewpoint and not the other, you actually can't get more than half marks. So that's why you must look at both sides. It's fine to have less for the side you agree with, that's absolutely fine, but you have to consider both things, because if not, you can't get more than 6 out of 12. And that would loosely be sort of C grades, and not that you're not getting a C grade, but I know lots of people will be aiming for higher than that as well. So you need to look at both sides. So once you've considered both sides of the arguments, you've shown that you understand them, what do you need to do at the end? A conclusion, yeah, you need to have a conclusion at the end. Has to be the same as what you said at the start, and I know that sounds really silly to say, but the amount of times I read it and people make a different judgment at the start to at the end, you can't get a really high mark if you've changed your mind halfway through. So that's why I think it's good to make a plan to get it clear in your mind. And that's where you have to actually support your judgment. So you want to reiterate why that is the most valid interpretation. And use some HK. It can be HK that you've already used in the main. It doesn't have to be some surprise knowledge that you pull out at the end. It would be actually more beneficial to use something you've already said, because that actually shows it's very, very important. So say something about why it was Roosevelt who was always going to win the 1932 election, or why actually it was guerrilla tactics that was more superior than the American tactics. So it's always looking at both sides and then giving that overall judgment at the end. For these, I'm looking for 2 pages. I think they should be about 2 pages. They should be about a page. The section B and C is where the answers have to be extended, because you know there's 12 marks available, so you have to write quite a lot, because actually the questions they're asking you about are things that people at university would write dissertations about, things that people write books about. You know, they might ask you why America lost the Vietnam War. I mean, we're obviously not going to ask you that for this exam if you haven't done that yet. That's a huge question, isn't it? So therefore, you've got to have enough depth in there in order to be able to show that answer. Anyone got any questions about the exam techniques? And then just think about your SPAG. So just simple things like full stops, commas, capital letters, that's what they're looking for. They're just looking for it to be clear and concise. They're not looking for it to be fancily written, they're just looking for it to have a good level of grammar. You wouldn't expect to buy a book and see that there's typos in it.
Thank
You taught?
Thank you.
You taught.